happened east of Bly. Nobody's in the dark. The Japanese involvement in besides setting the bomb over here in 1945, their first real interest was in 1995, 50th anniversary of the incident. I think Ray, you were talking about, or somebody that Japanese people came to Bly and placed some origami on the monument there. That was in 1995. And so last year, 2015, was the 70th anniversary of the balloon bomb incident. And so a Japanese television station wanted to do a story about the balloon bomb from beginning to end, which included the casualties at Bly, the British monument. And so I was approached to be involved in this, and it was a production company out of California that was doing this for this Japanese television station. So what you're going to see tonight appeared on Japanese television. So it's all in Japanese. I mean, I have a little part in it, and there's a couple other people that speak English, but it's Japanese with Japanese subtitles too. I don't understand that. Well, like they do a lot of things that we have the dialogue and then you can read it too. So I brought some newspaper articles here, and these are mainly focused on people who didn't go on the picnic. They lived in Bly, kids, and this one fellow, Leo Mall, you know that name? This fellow. And then there's a gentleman in the film that lived in Bly too, and he was ill. He'll tell you he had a bad cold. His mom didn't let him go on the picnic, so he missed the casualty. And then this fellow here lives in Washington. He could have gone too, I guess, but he didn't go. So that's what these articles are about. You're welcome to look at these as we do this. That was the main idea of their television show, was to talk about the manufacturing of these balloons and the construction of the bombs. There's incendiary bombs to start fires in the Northwest, and anti-personnel bombs to cause casualties. There's a natural, and you'll see it, there's a natural flow, a jet stream from Japan to Oregon, basically. That's kind of always there. And that's what they capitalized on, was this movement of air from Japan to Oregon and Washington and British Columbia, kind of. And you'll see that in the film. I'm just trying to think what else to prepare you for this thing. Mostly there were children working on the balloons. And this was kind of the last ditch effort of Japan. The war was not going well for them. This is late 1944. And this incident was in May of 45. And then in August of 45, we dropped 2 atomic bombs on them, just a few months after this. So that's kind of, yeah. So let's just watch it. Even though it's in Japanese, I think you can figure it out.
You can understand Japanese perfectly.
Well, I think you'll understand the source. Let me know about the volume. I think it's going to be not a big room. It's as loud as I'm going to get it. They lost about 6,000 of these balloons, and only about 400 have been actually recorded in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia.
実に1万個近くがアメリカ本土を標的に撃たれた。それを可能にしたのは日本古来の和紙とこんにゃく。秘密兵器を和紙とこんにゃくのりで作るってこんなことできるのかいなと思いましたよね。生産に携わったのは10代の女学生たち。打ち上げに動員されたのは10代の軍国少年たちだった。そして海の向こうで悲劇が起きる。
6 people who were killed here by a balloon bomb, Kelsey and 5 children.
和紙で作られた秘密兵器が太平洋を越えてアメリカの空を舞った。風船爆弾、その実態に迫る。
The 70th anniversary. You see the 70th?
東に位置する四国中央市。町には白い煙を吐き出す製紙工場が立ち並び、紙製品の生産量は日本一を誇る。地域には今も職人の手で一枚一枚作られる手すき和紙が伝統文化として
So this is the process of making them?
This guy's making paper for the balloon.
For the balloon.
balloon.
戦争に利用された時代があった。
I mean, showing how it was done.
四国中央市の医師伊藤美代子さん86歳。
これが作業に入る前の話です。
地元の高等女学校の生徒だった伊藤さん。終戦の前の年、1944年、15歳の春に勤労動員の命令を受ける。
看護師ができてますよね。それをちゃんとその形、風船になるような形に裁断しましてね、できた紙をそれぞれに貼り合わせ。
So did these school children
アメリカ本土に発見された風船爆弾。
what they were doing, what they were making those for? Know what they were making.
使われた素材はゴムより軽く革のような強
So
度。
when they learned of the deaths, that's what inspired them to come over.
太平洋を可能にした
Especially children.
手すき和紙。
Was it declassified right after the war, or did it take a while to be declassified?
It was classified during the war. They wanted to cover it up.
Quiet during. They'll talk about that.
戦争は愛媛を含む全国7
After all of the V1 attacks in England, they tried to keep the balloon bombs quiet through the end of the war to not cause a panic on the West Coast.
I was just wondering, what was it, 10, 20 years, just right
It
after?
was after the war was over.
Keeping it quiet, as you will see, was probably the direct reason why the kids got killed in Bly.
ですかね。そういうふうなものが分かってました。
川越高等女学校。伊藤さんが通ったこの学校までもが軍需工場と化した。1944年6月、校舎を使って風船爆弾の製造作業が始まったという。
この辺りぐらいの大きさの工場があるんですよ。はい。でその工場で作業しました。
授業は中止され、朝から夕方まで風船爆弾の製造が続けられた。それは10代の少女にとって厳しいものだったという。
できるだけ軽くしないと1万メートルまで飛ばすんですからね。できるだけの量残さないようにするんですよね。それもみんな指先できますから。結構指先がちめてきますよね。ちびというか薄くなってきます自分がね。その血が出たりね。
らに運動場にはある重要な施設が建てられていた。
この運動場のこの辺り、今江戸さんがおられる辺りでしょうかね。直径10メートルの高さのマークですけど、この建物が中からどうですよね。2つ立ってまして、これは私たちが張り上げた風船のテストをする。
So do you understand this is where the factory was?
完成した気球を空気で膨らませ、ガス漏れがないか確認する。
What were the bombs?
満球テスト。
What were they filled with? Was it an explosive?
I can't think of what it was. It's gas. Once it ignited, then it explodes, and they're cased in metal, so it's like shrapnel coming at you.
そういうようなこと
They're a
を
lot bigger than I thought they'd be.
Yeah.
作業のすべては軍事機密。その重圧に加えて孤独が重く少女にのしかかる。
それこそ親兄弟にもこういうことをしてるっていうことは言わないようにって言われてました。だから結局何ですか、そういうふうなこととか、そんなのが一番辛かったですね。言わないように秘密にするっていうことがね。
風船爆弾は作戦上の機密で不合と呼ばれた。掲げられた生産目標はおよそ1万5000個。全国の女学生らの手によって最終的に1万個近くが作られることになる。風船爆弾が生まれた背景ではアメリカ軍による日本本土への激しい空襲があった。追い詰められた軍部はアメリカ本土直接攻撃を模索し始める。東京都目黒区にある防衛省防衛研究所。ここに風船爆弾誕生に関する貴重な資料の一つが残されている。兵器開発のため参謀本部のさまざまな作戦を記した資料。その作戦の一つ、特殊気球符号装置。
What are we seeing here, John?
I think this is some kind of a record keeping thing, just a tabulation of something. Materials.
風船爆弾の研究者、明治大学の山田明教授。
Yeah, a lot of the balloons just collapsed in the ocean. They just didn't make it.
もちろん日本も非常によく話した技術なんですよね。つまり日本の技術は非常に高いものがあります。伝統技術とそれから最新の科学技術を組み合わせた。
和紙で作られた兵器が太平洋を渡ったメカニズムとはどのようなものだったのか。日本上空を西から東に吹く偏西風は高度1万メートル付近で勢いを増し、ジェット気流と呼ばれる。このジェット気流の観測をどこの国よりも進めていたのが旧日本軍だった。軍部は無人の気球を風速300キロにも達する冬のジェット気流に乗せ太平洋を横断させるという前代未聞の計画を打ち立てる。しかし大きな問題があった。上空1万メートルは夜にはマイナス50度近くにもなる超低温の世界。冷やされた無人の気球はしぼんで海に落ちてしまいアメリカまで届かない。日中や余りをいかにして飛ばすことができるのか。開発されたのは独自の高度維持装置だった。
気圧計で高度の経過を感知して、
Yeah, it was a very clever system. These are sandbags. And so the balloon would be going across, and if it would lose any kind of altitude, it would automatically, because of the air pressure, it would release these sandbags, and then it would elevate itself back up and keep moving. All based on pressure, air pressure.
さらに
Very clever.
教
Very
授は
clever.
素材の意味をこう指摘する。
和紙とこんにゃくのりを組み合わせでやった方が地球としては軽くできるということと、それか
One
ら
of the mistakes they made was they sent a lot of the incendiary bombs in the winter.
それはそう
They were trying to start forest fires. And right here in December and January when we had a lot of snow, so that wasn't successful.
しかもどこに落ちるかわからない。これらは兵器として重大な欠陥だった。しかし、これを補う恐ろしい計画があったと教授は明かす。
もともとがですね、730年代に開発したペスト菌とか乾燥菌とかこういうものを自分に殺傷用のですね、生物兵器を散布するということを考えているんですけども、一番最初の発想がもしもう最大限実現したとすると、これは無差別大量破壊兵器ということになりますよね。
しかし、そうした細菌は上空のマイナス50度の低温に耐えられないことが実験で明らかになる。さらに、細菌兵器を先制使用すれば、アメリカからより大きな報復を受ける恐れもある。軍はこの計画を断念する。しかしそんな中、終戦まで1年を切った1944年11月、風船爆弾の本格的な打ち上げが日本人の英知によって生み出された風船爆弾。それははるか太平洋を越え、北米まで到達した。カナダの首都オタワ。ダウンタウンの郊外にあるカナダ戦争博物館は、戦車をはじめとするおよそ300万点に及ぶ戦争資料を収蔵している。この博物館に70年前カナダの西海岸に飛来した風船爆弾が展示されている。公開されているのは気球に吊り下げられたもの。爆弾やバッテリー以外のほぼ全ての部品が日本から到達した当時の姿のまま残っている。
Yeah, some did make it to Canada too, some of the bombs, the balloons and
mechanism that's developed to help these movements across the Pacific is really quite interesting and quite ingenious. The balloon bomb was a very ingenious weapon, but it was one that ultimately failed to attain its objective.
So when they lost the sandbags at the gain altitude, what was it that caused them to land?
日本軍の思惑は失敗に終わったと指摘する。
John, there was actually a documentary that just showed last week all about this that I caught, and it was a barometric reading that would determine when a certain barometric pressure hit. They measured that as being over the United States and would then release at that point and start the descent.
got over land.
Yeah, so that over land as opposed to over ocean, the barometric pressure would change, and that's when it would trigger a mechanical system that would cause the balloon to descend.
Got over land is different. Air pressure.
風船爆弾には自爆装置が積まれていたため、その2倍から3倍程度の数が到達したとの見方もあるが、それでも9割近くが届かなかったことになる。さらにアメリカ軍は発見した風船爆弾について厳重な報道管制を敷いた。
Nothing was published and nothing was broadcast on radio. And this was done partly to help avoid causing panic in the public in North America, but also to deny information to the Japanese military about the success of the mission.
このアメリカの目論見により、旧日本軍は戦果をほとんど把握できなかったという。しかしそれはアメリカにとって諸刃の剣だった。 太平洋に面するアメリカ西海岸オレゴン州。最大の都市ポートランドから車で6時間余り南東に走ると、州南部のフレモント郊
We're driving to Bly.
この静かな原生林で悲劇は起こった。
We just recently changed the sign. It said Mitchell Recreation Area. Now we've got a brand new sign that says Mitchell Monument.
Standing on the site
So we're making some interview.
May 5th, 1945, a bomb exploded, killing 6 people.
70年前の5月5日、この日は休日で近郊の町ブライから若い牧師夫婦が地元の子供たち5人を連れてピクニックに来ていた。彼らは森の中で奇妙なものを見つける。
On their way down from the road, they came upon a device, a parachute with some apparatus attached to it. The kids did, and Elsie, saying, "Hey, we found something, we found something." And he told them to stay away, don't touch it, don't mess with it. As soon as he said that, so there was an explosion right here where we're standing. It was a balloon bomb that had come across the ocean from Japan.
響き渡る轟音。激しい爆発が立ちどころに6人の命を奪った。それから70年、爆発の痕跡は今も残っている。
Blue shrapnel, and they put them on into that tree right there. And if you come down here, this one probably contains shrapnel still, and this one contains shrapnel. So this, and probably this one too.
犠牲となったのは25ヶ月だった牧師の妻。
Yeah, that tree is on the National Register of Historic Trees in Oregon.
Wow.
この出来事はオレゴンの悲劇と呼ばれる。爆心地には慰霊碑ミッチェルモニュメントが残されている。
Yeah, even though it's for 70 years on from the tragedy, there's still a strong remembrance in the community of the line.
ミッチェルモニュメントから車で4時間、オレゴン州第3の都市ユージーンに暮らす
No.
ウィリアム・ハーティーさん84歳。
They do some of the
ブライ出身のウィリアムさんはオレゴンの悲劇で亡くなった子供たちの友達だ。彼は言う。私も犠牲になっていたかもしれない。
But I couldn't go. My mother wouldn't let me go because I had a bad cold. Oh, you bet. I know exactly what would happen. I got it with her duck in the puddle to get that bomb down.
オレゴンの悲劇の後、ブライには軍隊がやってきて、事件のことを町の外に漏らさないよう通達した。人々は小さな町の中で互いに互いを慰め合うしかなかった。
Yeah, but then it's really sad. Those people had died for nothing.
この6人は風船爆弾唯一の犠牲者。そして第二次世界大戦におけるアメリカ本土唯一の犠牲者であった。アメリカ本土で6人の命を奪った風船爆弾。この打ち上げに携わった男性、川崎市にいる。
本当にね、人間扱いじゃないようなチャレンジしたわけですよ。
太田英二さん、87歳。戦争中、陸軍のある研究機関で働いていた。
これは小学校のね、高等科写真なんですよ。その陸軍の時にね、私が入社した。
化学兵器の開発など陸軍の極秘作戦を担った登戸研究所。風船爆弾もここで開発された。1943年4月、太田さんは14歳で見習い工員として入所。翌年2月、同僚の少年十数人と共に風船爆弾の試射部隊に され、発射台は千葉県の九十九里川にあったという。
ただこれだけだ発射台は10メーターの気球走行からそこの発射場へ運んでくるわけです。
茨城県北部の大津には国内で唯一発射台の跡が残っている。直径10メートルにもなる円形の土台。
What is this, John?
同じ形
So
の
it's launching site
野田さん
for
は
the balloon.
気球に水素を充填し爆弾を取り付けて空に放った。
で間違いは何が死んでるわけでしょ。
So they, they spread it out and they can fill it full of helium, I guess, right there.
そのロシアの顔ね、のために仕事のためだったり、あるいはですね、躊躇したりしたことが言うね。多分、仕事の無理。
夜明けから日暮れまで働かされた。疲れ切って寝床につくと、まぶたの裏に母の顔が浮かんだという。
これを出すわけにはいかないし、応援続けないといけない。みんな
太田さんと共にかつて作業をした発射台があったと思われる千葉県白子町の海岸へと向かった。
これは放課後である。
九十九里浜を訪れること自体数十年ぶりだという太田さん。発射台は海から100メートルほど離れた砂の丘の向こう側にあったという。
これはね、言われたと思います。こんなところで作業は来るんだからな。
It's interesting that the area is completely undeveloped now, where all this activity was.
70年前の痕跡は何も残っていなかった。しかし、風船爆弾を打ち上げた記憶は今でも太田さんの中に残り続ける。
忘れてる人も忘れられない。これは現実です。
1945年8月、アメリカの原子爆弾はその圧倒的破壊力で日本を降伏に追い込む。太平洋横断という前人未到の挑戦を和紙に託しておった風船爆弾。
Those are the credits.
So were some of these shot down by our aircraft?
Yes, yes.
戦時下の劣勢を覆すもの。時代のあだ花。
Yeah, I'd be completely lost if it wasn't for the subtitles.
We're impressed.
Yeah. So maybe somebody can help me here with, go ahead.
I was going to check. I think the timing would have been just right. We were out on the playground in Fruitland, Idaho, and something was floating over. It would have been just the right timing. It was very slow.
Uh-huh,
It was way up in the sky. I'm pretty sure it was one of those.
sure.
It'd be about this right here.
There's a bunch of good books written about this, 3 or 4 that I'm aware of, and they have maps of where they found these, and all over Oregon, and
Yeah, this was clear
Northern
over
California, Idaho, Washington,
across from Ontario.
British Columbia. So I can get that to Marie, maybe all the book titles and stuff, for people that be interested.
Well, I know it went really slow. You know, we watched it for
Yeah,
quite a
sounds like
while.
a balloon.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I don't know how this thing exploded, because these kids are just touching it, I guess. or they see it laying there, and so they must have started some kind of thing in motion. I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on?
There was a documentary that actually. Oh, sorry, Frank. Go ahead. There was a documentary that just happened to air last week. It was a mini documentary. There's a new show. It's channel, I think, 195 on Dish, called What History Forgot.
Oh.
And they do like little mini segments of forgotten stories from the past. And they did a segment on the Mitchell Monument and the balloon bomb. They said the furthest one that was registered as traveling went all the way to Oklahoma. And that it was a barometric pressure gauge that determined when it would start its descent, but a lot of them landed without it actually detonating. Apparently, they had footage of one that was discovered just 2 or 3 years ago that they had to send a bomb squad crew out to detonate from a safe distance. So there's still apparently a lot of them just sitting out there.
Yeah, BLM thinks they have some east of Beatty's View, possibly, areas that nobody's been in.
What do they do if they find them now? Like, can they still go off?
Yeah, they detonate them.
Oh,
But I just understand these kids would found this object, okay, and they're like poking it, touching it, maybe. Is that enough for the process to begin, to explode? I don't, that's a mystery to me.
Yeah.
You'd have some kind of spark or fire that would have to happen to ignite the gas in the bomb. So did they explain that at all?
It was only about a 15-minute segment, and this is something I've studied too, so I know some of it, but I don't think they've ever actually determined why it went off when people were present when it first landed. But there's a bunch that have been discovered that were undetonated, so there's something faulty in the design of them.
When it landed, it would explode.
Well, it would have anti-personnel that was supposed to explode at height, so that it would shower down below.
Okay. So we're back to the pressure then.
Yeah. So it was all based on barometric pressure, and when it reached a certain barometric pressure to indicate it was over land, that's when it would start it would start a descent, and then at a certain altitude, it was supposed to explode at altitude to spread shrapnel down below.
Okay, so this one failed.
Right.
Above, but it exploded on the ground. So any other comments, questions? Or?
I did notice on the plaque, on the monument, it briefly showed it, and it said only American citizens to die on the American continent. Does that not include the Aleutian Islands? Because Alaska wasn't a state at that time, but it's still part of the American continent, and there was fighting.
The lower 48.
Right.
That is probably the idea there.
My grandfather was involved in the Aleutian combat.
My dad fought on the Aleutian Islands against the Japanese. There's some battles. There were some really hairy battles there.
Some of the first groups that landed in the Aleutian.
Yeah.
Landed on that too, May 11th.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the war that people don't know about or not aware of.
Well, it was all a diversionary tactic away from Midway.
Oh.
The landings happened right before Midway, so they were trying to divert the American carriers up north to Alaska so that they could then take over Midway Island. But they didn't know that the U.S. had broken the Japanese code, and so they knew that the Aleutians were a diversionary tactic.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, like I said earlier, keeping it quiet, probably contributed to these people's demise. Because it had been advertised, and we all knew about it, and then they would have been more careful about this thing. So it's kind of a win-lose.
Well, and the kids always run ahead when the adults, impulsive.
But I think there was some awareness, because the dad, Archie, told him to stay away. I think he has some sense. And he went on to, he was a missionary, ran the Bly missionary church there in Bly, went on to Vietnam as a missionary and disappeared.
Oh, he disappeared.
Disappeared.
Oh, he did?
That's what. That's what I've learned, you know. Remarried,
He remarried.
but just, during, I think it was like, you know, like in the late 50s, maybe, or 60s. When the French were there, and he just disappeared. And Elsie, yes, you know, I used to tear up whenever I talk about this stuff. I've gotten a little bit better. Elsie was pregnant
Yeah.
and still alive, but her clothes were on fire. You know, but she died shortly. A real sad situation. Close to our home. And it's interesting, you know, I grew up in Corvallis, and you know, we never knew about this. It's just not, wasn't taught in schools. You know, it's just out of sight, out of mind to the people in the Willamette Valley, I guess. It's very important to Oregon's history, I think.
You think it's a little known because even today, I don't think it's widely known a
No,
lot. And
no.
I wonder if that's because we are in this isolated area, that
Yeah.
I think that's the reason. If it were in a more populated area, more visible area.
Yeah, and we're making efforts to, well, we're trying to improve the site, you know, as Kurt's aware of. This last September, we had Public Lands Day at Fremont-Winema. And we made some new trails and cleaned it up and planted some trees. The trees had died there, so we planted some new trees and changed the sign. And finally, after several years, we got a sign on the highway.
Yeah.
If you notice, this is Mitchell Monument.
I saw that.
That was, it took a lot of work with ODOT and those people. It just went on and on and on. I'm glad it finally got, so now people can actually find it. If they're driving. Yes, Bob.
Well, I grew up in southeastern Kansas, and I was just, well, this was 44.
45, May of 45.
Anyway, I remember reading in a weekly newspaper that came out from Kansas City, Missouri, and about this Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought at the time, it was so strange that the people would be having a Sunday school picnic,
Yeah.
go out to this certain spot, and it was just, you know, let them leave. But anyway, there was quite an article in that.
Yeah. No, it went all over the world as far as news. Another item that's not well known is the governor's airplane crash thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is out by Dog Lake. And you go to Portland or whatever, talk to any Oregonian, they have no idea about that also. So
And what year was that?
that was 47, October 40,
After this, and
October 47. And I'm working right now trying to get that site on the National Register of Historic Places, the governor's airplane crash.
because we visited that as a group with you one time.
Yeah, it's still there. And, but Marie, you're correct. If the Bly Ranger Station was near I-5, it would be well visited and taken care of too, as well as the balloon bomb and the governor's airplane. If these things were not so far away.
I find it interesting that there, you know, the more you delve into these things, that there is so much actual military history here that we never really knew about or considered. You know, for instance, when Goose Lake was dry, or has been dry, and airplanes, you know, that are in the Goose Lake.
Yeah.
And out in, towards Hart Mountain, Steve's Mountains out in that direction, there were planes that went down, right?
Yes.
And up by Portland too, Fort Stevens was shelled by a Japanese submarine.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think we're fortunate to have Kurt, because I think he's exposed some of these things, you know, in the newspaper. You know, it's just Just too far to go look, I guess, from Portland or wherever.
There is actually one of these replica bombs on public display in the state of Oregon, in Newport.
Oh.
I know because we did a couple field trips when I was a kid. Out on the Newport waterfront, they have a Ripley's Believe It or Not. And there's a portion in there where you sit down in this booth and they show a little mini documentary about the balloon bombs. And at the end it says, now look up. You look up and directly above you is the balloon bomb hanging down.
I mean, I've never been in there.
Yeah.
But I've seen
Yeah, we
it.
took the Lakeview kids there, the West Side kids. And
Is it right on the
it's
waterfront?
right, yeah, it's
Yeah.
downtown in the waterfront.
Yeah. Near Moe's kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Went there a couple
Across from
times
the
on
undersea
field
gardens
trips.
and,
Yeah.
all those- yeah, that was amazing when we got in there.
What there's some kind of military thing here at Jess Fair was stationed here with something, when,
Right,
like the airport.
right, yeah.
It wasn't Flato, wasn't, what's his name, Glenn, wasn't he stationed here? Glenn Flato
He
was,
wasn't, he took over.
he
from
took
the-
over, okay, that's how he was involved with the airport.
Yeah, I think there's several here that did come here as a result of World War II. I think Roy Ford, if I remember right, was stationed out here.
So they're more or less stationed here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they were watching for balloon bombs.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, John.